The transport ship's engines hummed quietly as Hyen-Woo Kim pressed his face against the small window. Below him, the Galactic research station orbited the green and blue world of Keleth Prime like a giant metal flower, its silver arms stretched out in perfect symmetry, each section housing different species from across the galaxy. After 3 months of travel from Earth, he was finally here. Hyen-Woo adjusted his simple brown jacket and checked his bag one more time. Inside were his basic tools, a handheld microscope, soil testing kits, sample containers, and his grandfather's old compass. The other passengers on the transport had laughed when they saw his equipment. Their own gear glowed with holographic displays and made soft beeping sounds. His tools looked like museum pieces in comparison. The docking bay doors opened with a sharp hiss. Hyen-Woo stepped onto the station and immediately felt the weight of dozens of eyes watching him. The aliens in the bay towered over him, or floated nearby, their forms so different from anything on Earth that he had to remind himself not to stare. A crystalline being approached him, its body made of what looked like living diamond. Each step it took created small musical notes that echoed through the bay. This had to be Dr. Sujin, the lead researcher he had been told about. Her crystal face had no expression he could read, but somehow he could sense her disappointment. "Are the human they sent us?" Dr. Sujin said. Her voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I expected someone more impressive." Hyen-Woo bowed slightly, the way his grandmother had taught him. "I am honored to work with your team. Dr. Sujin, I have studied your research papers for years." "Have you indeed?" The crystal being turned and began walking toward the main corridor. "Come, I will show you to your quarters. Try not to touch anything important." As they walked through the station, Hyen-Woo saw wonders that took his breath. Away, gaseous beings floated through specially designed tubes in the walls, their forms shifting like colored clouds. Insect-like creatures with multiple arms worked at computer stations that projected three-dimensional images in the air. Plants from dozens of worlds grew in perfect gardens that seemed to tend themselves. Dr. Sujin noticed his amazement. The Vorthok designed this station using quantum mathematics and crystal matrix planning. Every surface, every angle, every space serves multiple purposes, is efficient in ways your human mind could never understand. They passed a group of tall, thin aliens with large black eyes. These were the Quillen Hyen-Woo realized from his studies. They stood in perfect silence, but he could sense they were communicating through their shared mind connection. When they noticed him, all 6 heads turned at exactly the same moment. Their stare made him uncomfortable. "The Quillen process information as a collective," Dr. Sujin explained. "They share knowledge instantly across their entire species. They find individual thinking to be crude and inefficient." "What about humans?" Hyen-Woo asked. "What do they think of us?" Dr. Sujin's crystal body seemed to dim slightly. "I think humans are barely past the Stone Age. Violent primitives who solve problems by hitting them with rocks." The corridor they walked through was filled with displays showing the current research project. Images of Keleth Prime's southern continent filled the screens, but something was wrong with the pictures. Where there should have been forests and grasslands, Hyen-Woo saw only empty brown earth. Rivers ran dry. Lakes had become empty craters. "This is our current crisis," Dr. Sujin said, stopping before the largest display. "Entire ecosystems on Keleth Prime are dying. Not slowly, like from disease or climate change. They vanish completely. In a matter of days, we have lost contact with 3 research teams sent to investigate." Hyen-Woo studied the images carefully. Something about the pattern of destruction caught his attention, but he could not put his finger on what it was. "Have you found any clues about what might be causing this?" "We've run quantum probability scans, dimensional analysis, and temporal displacement calculations. The Quillen Collective has processed over 10 million possible scenarios. The Nethrim have analyzed energy patterns across 17 different spectrums." Dr. Sujin's voice carried a note of frustration. "Nothing makes sense. The destruction appears random." They reached a small door marked with human symbols. "These are your quarters," Dr. Sujin said. "You will find basic life support suited to your primitive biology." Food synthesizer has been programmed with your species' nutritional requirements. Heian Wu placed his hand on the door scanner. It beeped and opened to reveal a simple room with a bed, desk, and small kitchenette. Compared to his tiny apartment back on Earth, it seemed luxurious. Tomorrow, you will meet the rest of the research. Team Dr. Sujin continued. I suggest you observe quietly and try not to interfere with actual scientific work. Perhaps you can catalog plant samples or perform other simple tasks suitable to your capabilities. After she left, Heian Wu sat on his bed and looked out the small window at Keleth Prime below. The planet looked peaceful from orbit, its clouds swirling in gentle patterns. But he knew that somewhere down there something was destroying entire ecosystems without leaving a trace. He unpacked his grandfather's compass and set it on the desk. The old man had been a tracker in the Korean mountains, able to find lost hikers when high-tech search teams failed. Trust your eyes and your brain, he had always said. Machines can lie, but the earth tells the truth to those who know how to listen. Heian Wu pulled out his notebook and began sketching the pattern of destruction he had seen in the images. His drawing was simple compared to the complex holographic displays, but something about putting pencil to paper helped him think. Dead zones were not random. He was becoming sure of that. There was a pattern, but it was subtle. It's the kind of pattern that computers might miss because they were looking for the wrong things. A soft sound made him look up. Outside his door, something was moving in the corridor. Through the small window in his door, he could see a shimmering form floating past. It moved like colored smoke, changing shape as it traveled. This had to be one of the Nethrim, the gaseous beings he had read about. The being stopped outside his door for a moment, its form pulsing with soft light. Then it continued down the corridor, leaving behind only a faint smell like ozone after lightning. Heian Wu returned to his sketching. But he could not shake the feeling that the Nethrim had been watching him. On a station full of beings who considered humans to be primitive, why would one of the most advanced species be interested in him? He worked late into the station's artificial night, filling page after page with observations and questions. Tomorrow, he would meet his new colleagues and begin the real work. He had no idea that his simple human way of seeing patterns would soon become the key to saving not just the research teams, but the entire planet below. The research laboratory buzzed with activity when Heian Wu arrived the next morning. Holographic displays filled the air with complex data streams that hurt his eyes to look at directly. The alien scientists moved between workstations with practiced efficiency, their advanced equipment humming and beeping in harmony. Dr. Sujin stood at the center of it all, her crystal body reflecting the colored lights from dozens of screens. Around her, 3 Quillen researchers worked in perfect silence, their shared minds processing information faster than any individual could follow. The Nethrim floated near the ceiling, their gaseous forms pulsing with different colors as they analyzed energy readings from the planet below. Ah, the human has arrived, Dr. Sujin announced, without looking up from her quantum scanner. You may observe from the designated area. Please do not touch anything or interrupt the actual scientists. Heian Wu walked to a small table in the corner where someone had placed a basic computer terminal and a few sample containers. The setup looked like something from a high school science class compared to the advanced equipment around him. He sat down and activated the terminal, which displayed simple charts and graphs about Keleth Prime's ecosystem data. The quantum probability matrix shows a 17% chance of cascade failure, one of the Quillen announced suddenly. All 3 insect-like beings spoke the words at exactly the same time, their shared consciousness making individual identity meaningless. Confirmed, pulsed one of the Nethrim, its gaseous form shifting to a deep blue color. Dimensional analysis indicates temporal distortions in grid sections 7 through 15. Dr. Sujin nodded approvingly. Excellent work. Continue scanning. For quantum anomalies, the answer must be in the subatomic structure of the affected areas. Heian Wu listened to their technical discussion while studying the basic data on his simple terminal. The information was much more limited than what the others were working with, but it included something they seemed to be ignoring: animal migration, patterns, soil composition changes, and weather data from the affected regions. As the morning progressed, he began to notice something interesting. While the aliens focused on complex quantum measurements and dimensional analysis, the simple data told a different story. The animal migrations showed clear patterns of avoidance weeks before the ecosystems actually died. Soil samples revealed unusual mineral deposits that formed lines across the landscape. Weather stations recorded strange atmospheric disturbances that followed predictable paths. "Excuse me?" Haiyan Wu said quietly, raising his hand like a student in class. The entire laboratory fell silent. All eyes turned to him, and he could feel the weight of their disapproval. "Yes, human." "Doctor!" Sujin's voice carried the musical equivalent of a sigh. "What is your primitive observation?" Haiyan Wu stood up, holding his notebook. "I think the destruction is following underground water sources. The mineral deposits form lines that match old riverbeds, and the animals started avoiding these areas before anything visible happened on the surface." The Quillen Collective turned their heads toward him in perfect unison. "Underground water sources are irrelevant to quantum cascade failures," they said together. "Your suggestion lacks scientific basis." "The Quillen are correct," Dr. Sujin added. "Water distribution cannot cause the complete molecular dissolution we are observing. Your human tendency to see patterns where none exist is well documented in galactic psychological studies." One of the Nethrim pulsed a bright yellow, which Haiyan Wu had learned meant amusement. "Perhaps the primitive wishes to dig in the dirt. With his simple tools," it said in a voice like wind through leaves. "Very appropriate for his species." The other researchers returned to their work, dismissing Haiyan Wu's suggestion completely. He sat back down at his small table, feeling his face burn with embarrassment. But as he looked at the data again, he became more convinced that he was right. The pattern was there, clear as day, if anyone bothered to look at the simple information. Instead of focusing only on complex quantum readings, hours passed in frustrated silence. The alien scientists ran scan after scan, their equipment growing more sophisticated with each attempt. They analyzed quantum fields, measured dimensional stability, and calculated probability matrices that required computers the size of buildings to process. Yet they found nothing that could explain the systematic destruction of entire ecosystems. During the lunch break, Haiyan Wu decided to explore the station. He needed to clear his head and think about the problem from a different angle. The corridors were quieter now, with most of the research staff in the main dining area eating meals suited to their various biolest. As he walked past a communications room, he heard someone speaking in Korean. The familiar language made him stop and listen. Through the open door, he could see a young woman with short black hair sitting at a complex control panel. "Hello," he said in Korean, stepping into the room. The woman looked up in surprise, then smiled. Another human. "I thought I was the only one on this station. I am Myung, communications officer for the research division. I am Haiyan Wu, xenobiologist. Though I am beginning to think they only brought me here to carry sample containers." Myung laughed. "The aliens do tend to think we are all still, throwing rocks at each other on Earth. How's your research going?" Haiyan Wu told her about his theory regarding the underground water sources and the dismissive reaction from the other scientists. Myung listened carefully, occasionally nodding as he explained the patterns he had noticed. "You know," she said when he finished, "I have access to historical data files that the research team might not have looked at. Geological surveys, old settlement records, that sort of thing. If you are right about water sources being important, those files might have information that could help. Would you be willing to help me look?" Haiyan Wu asked hopefully. "Of course, we humans need to stick together in a place like this." Myung turned to her computer terminal and began typing rapidly. "Let me pull up the geological survey data for Kelith Prime's southern continent." Files began appearing on the screen, showing detailed maps of underground water systems, mineral deposits, and geological formations. Haiyan Wu felt his heart race. As he saw the information, the underground river network matched his theory almost perfectly. The dead zones followed the path of ancient waterways with remarkable precision. "This is it," he said excitedly. "The destruction is definitely following these underground channels. But what could be moving through them?" Myung enhanced the image, showing more detail. "Look at these readings from the mineral surveys. There are unusual crystalline formations along the water routes. The survey teams noted them but dismissed them as natural crystal growth." "When were these surveys conducted?" Hyan-Woo asked. 2 years ago, before the ecosystem destruction began." Myung's expression grew serious. These crystal formations were already there, waiting. As they studied the data together, Hyan-Woo became aware of a strange sensation. The air in the communications room seemed to shimmer slightly, and there was a faint smell like ozone. He looked around, but saw nothing unusual. "Did you feel that?" he asked Myung. "Feel what?" She looked confused. The shimmering stopped, but Hyan-Woo had the distinct impression that something had been watching them. Something that moved like colored smoke and left behind the scent of electricity in the air. "Nothing," he said, turning back to the data. "Let us keep working. We are on to something important." Unknown to both humans, Nethrim being had indeed been listening to their conversation from within the station's atmospheric system. The gaseous creature had heard every word of their discussion about water sources and crystal formations. For the first time in its long existence, it was beginning to suspect that primitive thinking might hold the key to solving an impossible mystery. The emergency alarm woke Hyan-Woo from a deep sleep. Red lights flashed in his quarters as the station's computer announced the crisis in multiple alien languages before switching to basic English. "Research Team Alpha has failed to report for scheduled communication. Last known position: Grid Section 12, southern continent of Keleth Prime. All personnel report to emergency stations." Hyan-Woo dressed quickly and ran to the main laboratory. The room was filled with frantic activity as alien scientists worked there, controls with desperate urgency. Dr. Sujin stood at the center of the chaos, her crystal body glowing brighter than usual with stress. "What happened?" Hyan-Woo asked. Myung, who had arrived just before him. "Team Alpha went down to investigate the dead zones 3 days ago," she whispered back. "They were supposed to check in every 12 hours, but we lost contact yesterday morning. The orbital scanners cannot find any trace of them." Dr. Sujin's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "I'm authorizing an immediate rescue mission. We will use quantum scanning arrays and probability matrices to locate the missing team. The Quillen Collective will process all available data while the Nethrim conduct energy spectrum analysis." One of the Quillen researchers stepped forward, speaking for all three. "Collective analysis indicates optimal search patterns based on mathematical probability. Quantum scanners will identify biosignatures within a radius of 50 kilometers. Confirmed, pulsed a Nethrim near the ceiling. Energy spectrum analysis will detect life forms across 17 different dimensional frequencies. No organic being can hide from our combined scanning methods." Hyan-Woo raised his hand hesitantly. "Dr. Sujin, I would like to volunteer for the rescue mission." The entire room fell silent. Every alien eye and sensor turned toward him with expressions of disbelief. "Absolutely not," Dr. Sujin said firmly. "This is a critical rescue operation requiring advanced scientific equipment and analysis. We cannot risk having a primitive being interfere with sophisticated procedures." "But I have been studying the patterns of destruction," Hyan-Woo protested. "I think the missing team might have encountered whatever is causing the ecosystem collapse. My research could help locate them." The Quillen Collective spoke in unison, their voice dripping with disdain. "Human pattern recognition is based on primitive survival instincts. It has no place in scientific rescue operations. Your presence would only endanger the mission." Dr. Sujin nodded in agreement. "The human will remain on the station and assist with sample cataloging. That is a task more suited to his capabilities." Doubt, as the alien scientists continued planning their high-tech rescue mission. Hyan-Woo felt frustration building in his chest. He knew his simple observations about water sources and crystal formations were important, but no one would listen to him. The missing research team could be in terrible danger while the aliens wasted time with their complex equipment. After the briefing ended, Hyan-Woo walked alone through the station's corridors, trying to calm his anger. He passed through the atmospheric processing section, where large tubes carried gases needed by the Nithrim inhabitants. The air here smelled like ozone and electricity. Suddenly, the atmosphere around him began to shimmer. Colored gases swirled together, forming a vaguely humanoid shape that floated just above the floor. Hianwu had never seen a Nithrim this close before. Its body was beautiful, like a living aurora made of silver and blue light. "Do not be afraid, human," the being said in a voice like wind through crystal caves. "I am Kalnin, tracker of the lost and finder of the hidden. I have been watching you." Hianwu's heart raced, but he managed to speak calmly. "Why have you been watching me?" The Nethrim's form pulsed with soft light as it considered the question. "Your species fascinates me. You think in ways that we have forgotten. We Nithrim evolved beyond physical form millions of years ago, gaining perfect logic and unlimited processing power. But in our advancement, we lost something important." "What did you lose?" Hianwu asked. "The ability to think like prey that became predator," Kalnin replied. "Your people spent millions of years as hunters and the hunted. You learned to see patterns that others miss, to notice the small signs that mean life or death. We advanced. Species have forgotten this ancient wisdom." Kalnin drifted closer, its gaseous form shifting colors like a living rainbow. "I have studied tracking methods across 1,000 worlds and 10,000 species. But only humans still possess the raw instinct that made hunting possible before technology existed. The other scientists think human instincts are primitive and useless," Hianwu said bitterly. "They are wrong." Galnin's voice carried absolute certainty. "I have been tracker for this galaxy for 3 centuries. I have found lost ships in impossible places, located missing persons, when all technology failed, discovered hidden threats that no scanner could detect. I did this by combining Nethrim energy sensing with techniques learned from primitive species." The revelation stunned Hianwu. The most legendary tracker in known space was telling him that primitive human instincts had value that advanced technology could not replace. "The missing research team," Hianwu said urgently. "Do you think they are still alive? Perhaps. But the other scientists will never find them using only quantum scanners and probability matrices. The force that is destroying the ecosystems interferes with most advanced technology. This is why their equipment has found nothing useful." Kalnin's form brightened with determination. "I propose a partnership, human. Your pattern recognition combined with my energy sensing abilities. Together we might succeed where pure technology will fail." "But Dr. Sujin specifically ordered me to stay on the station," Hianwu protested. "Dr. Sujin commands the research mission. She does not command me." The Nethrim's voice carried a note of amusement. "I am requesting your assistance with an independent tracking operation. Will you help me find the missing team?" Hianwu thought about his grandfather's words about trusting his instincts when technology failed. He thought about the patterns he had discovered in the simple data that the aliens had dismissed. Most importantly, he thought about the 3 researchers who might be dying while everyone else wasted time with ineffective scanning methods. "Yes," he said firmly, "I will help." Kalnin's gaseous form swirled with what looked like satisfaction. "Excellent. We'll depart when the station enters its sleep cycle. Bring your primitive equipment and your pattern-reading abilities. Leave the advanced technology behind." "How will we get to the planet without anyone noticing?" Hianwu asked.
"I
"Have been moving unseen through this galaxy since before your species discovered fire," Kalnin replied with what might have been a smile. "Trust me to handle transportation. You focus on preparing your mind for the hunt." As the Nethrim dissolved back into the atmospheric system, Hianwu felt a mixture of excitement and terror. He was about to disobey direct orders and venture onto a dangerous planet with a being he barely knew, but something deep in his human instincts told him this was the right choice. That night, as the station's artificial lights dimmed for the sleep cycle, Hianwu packed his simple equipment: microscope, soil testing kit, sample containers, and his grandfather's compass. He also brought his notebook filled with observations about water patterns and crystal formations. He was ready to prove that Sometimes the most primitive methods were exactly what advanced civilizations needed to solve their greatest mysteries. The hunt was about to begin, and for the first time since arriving at the station, Yanwu felt like he might actually be useful. The small escape pod landed silently in the darkness of Keleth Prime's southern continent. Hyenwu felt his stomach settle as the artificial gravity stabilized. Through the small window, he could see an alien landscape lit only by the planet's 2 moons. Strange trees with silver bark stretched toward the starry sky, while purple grass swayed in the night breeze. Kalnin's gaseous form flowed out of the pod's atmospheric system and took shape beside him. The Nethrum's body glowed softly in the darkness, providing just enough light to see by. "We are approximately 20 kilometers from the last known position of Research Team Alpha," Kalnin said, its voice barely above a whisper. "From here, we must track them using only our natural abilities." Hyenwu shouldered his simple pack and checked his grandfather's compass. The needle pointed north, steady and reliable, despite being surrounded by alien technology. "Which direction? Should we start?" "That depends on your human instincts," Kalnin replied. "What do your pattern recognition abilities tell you about this place?" Hyenwu looked around carefully, letting his mind work the way his grandfather had taught him. The landscape seemed peaceful, but something felt wrong. The night sounds were too quiet. No insects buzzed, no small animals rustled in the undergrowth. Even the wind seemed muffled and strange. "The ecosystem here is dying," he said slowly. "Not dead yet, but dying. The animals have fled and the plants are struggling. We are in one of the affected zones, correct? My energy sensors confirm biological degradation in this area. But what caused it?" Hyenwu knelt and examined the ground with his small flashlight. The soil looked normal at first glance, but when he dug deeper with his testing kit, he found something unusual. Small crystalline fragments were mixed throughout the earth, too small to see without careful examination. "There are crystal pieces in the soil," he reported. "They look artificial, not like natural minerals." Kalnin's form pulsed with interest. "Show me." Hyenwu held up a sample container with the tiny crystal fragments. Kalnin flowed closer, its gaseous body swirling around the container. Suddenly, the Nethrum's colors shifted from blue and silver to bright orange and red. "These crystals contain energy signatures I have never encountered before," Kalnin said with alarm. "They are not natural formations. Something created them, something very old and very powerful." They began walking toward the area where the research team had last been seen. Hyenwu used his flashlight to examine the ground, while Kalnin scanned for energy readings. The further they traveled, the more crystal fragments they found in the soil. The dying vegetation became more obvious as well. Trees stood leafless and brittle, while the purple grass had turned brown and crumbled at their touch. "Look at this," Hyenwu said, stopping beside what had once been a small stream. The water was gone, but the stream was filled with a line of crystalline material that gleamed in their light. Kalnin examined the crystal formation carefully. "This is not random crystal growth. The structure is too organized, too purposeful. It follows the exact path of the water source." Hyenwu felt his heart race as understanding began to dawn. The crystals are not just appearing in the soil. They are replacing the organic matter, converting it somehow. "Converting it into what?" Kalnin asked. Before Hyenwu could answer, they heard a sound in the distance. It was mechanical, like the humming of giant machines, but deeper and more resonant than any technology he knew. The sound seemed to come from underground, vibrating through the crystallized earth beneath their feet. That way, Hyenwu pointed, toward the source of the sound. Whatever is making that noise might be connected to the missing team. They moved carefully through the dying landscape, following the mechanical humming. The crystal formations became more elaborate as they traveled, growing from simple fragments in the soil to complex geometric structures that jutted up from the ground like alien monuments. Kalnin suddenly stopped moving. "I am detecting massive energy readings ahead. Something is active in that direction, something that uses power sources beyond current galactic technology." "Older technology?" Hyenwu asked. "Much older. The energy signature suggests machinery that has been operating for thousands of years, possibly longer." They crested a small hill, and looked down into a valley that took Haiyan-Wu's breath away. Below them, an enormous crystalline structure stretched across the landscape like a metallic spiderweb. Gleaming towers connected by bridges of solid crystal created a network that pulsed with internal light. The mechanical humming was much louder here, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with energy. "What is that thing?" Haiyan-Wu whispered. "I believe we have found an ancient terraforming system," Kelnin replied, its voice filled with awe and fear. "A machine designed to convert organic worlds into something else entirely." As they watched, sections of the crystalline network began to glow brighter. A beam of light shot out from various towers, scanning the surrounding area methodically. Where the beams touched organic matter, the plants and soil began to change, converting into more crystal formations. "It is harvesting the ecosystem," Haiyan-Wu realized with horror. "Breaking down all biological matter and rebuilding it as part of itself. This explains why our advanced scanning equipment found nothing useful," Kelnin said. "The crystal matrix interferes with most energy-based sensors. The organic components are being absorbed and converted so completely that they leave no trace for our instruments to detect." Haiyan-Wu pulled out his notebook and began sketching the layout of the ancient machine. His grandfather had always told him to record what he saw, because memory could play tricks, but written observations stayed true. "If this machine has been sleeping for thousands of years, what woke it up?" he asked. "Unknown. But we must assume that research team Alpha encountered this system during their investigation. They may have triggered its activation somehow, or they may be trapped inside it," Haiyan-Wu said grimly. "If the machine is designed to process organic matter, it might be holding them somewhere within the structure." Kelnin's gaseous form shifted to deep purple, which Haiyan-Wu had learned indicated serious concern. "The energy readings suggest that the system is not yet at full operational capacity. It is still in the early stages of planetary conversion. But if it continues to expand at this rate, it will consume the entire continent within months. Then we need to find the research team and stop this machine before it is too late," Haiyan-Wu said with determination. "Agreed. But how do we approach something that can convert organic matter into crystal matrix? My gaseous form might be resistant to its processing methods, but your biological body would be extremely vulnerable." Haiyan-Wu studied the ancient terraforming system carefully, looking for patterns in its operation. The scanning beams moved in predictable cycles, and the crystal network had gaps where organic matter had not yet been converted. His human pattern recognition abilities, evolved from millions of years of avoiding predators, began to identify safe paths through the mechanical landscape. There, he pointed to a section where the scanning beams did not overlap. "If we time our movements correctly, we can reach that crystal tower without being detected." The machine operates on logical patterns, but it was designed to handle predictable organic behavior. "What makes you think we can fool it?" Kelnin asked. Hugh smiled grimly. "Because humans learned to hunt and avoid being hunted long before. We developed logic. We know how to be unpredictable when our lives depend on it." Together, the human and the Nethrim began planning their approach to the ancient predator that was slowly devouring an entire world. Haiyan-Wu crouched behind a cluster of crystalline spires, watching the scanning beams sweep across the valley in their endless pattern. The ancient terraforming system operated with mechanical precision, each beam following the same path every 47 seconds. His grandfather's hunting lessons had taught him to count timing like this, measuring danger the way a heartbeat measures life. "The central tower," Kelnin whispered, its gaseous form barely visible in the crystal light. "My energy sensors detect organic signatures inside that structure. 3 distinct life forms, very weak, but still alive." Haiyan-Wu studied the massive tower at the center of the network. Unlike the other crystalline structures, this one pulsed with deep red light and seemed to be drawing energy from all the smaller towers around it. Getting there would require crossing 3 separate scanning zones without being detected. "Long do you think they have left?" he asked. "Unknown, but the life signs are fading. The system appears to be processing them slowly, breaking down their biological matter bit by bit." The thought of the research team trapped inside that nightmare Machine made Hyenwoo's stomach clench with anger. He pulled out his notebook and began sketching the patrol patterns of the scanning beams. Numbers and timing calculations filled the margins as he worked out a route through the mechanical maze. "There is a problem," Kale-9 said suddenly. Analysis shows that the system's defenses are adaptive. Each time we avoid one scanning beam, the others adjust their patterns slightly to compensate. It is learning from our movements." "Learning how?" Hyenwoo asked, not looking up from his calculations.
Oh no.
But the pattern changes suggest an artificial intelligence designed to counter evasion attempts. The longer we observe, the more difficult our approach becomes. Hyunwoo closed his notebook and looked at the Nethrum. "Then we cannot think like prey trying to avoid a predator. We need to think like humans." "I do not understand." "Humans did not survive by being the fastest or strongest creatures on Earth," Hyenwoo explained. "We survived by being unpredictable, by doing things that made no sense to other animals. This machine was built by logical beings to counter logical behavior. But what if we do something completely illogical?" Kal-9's form shifted colors as it considered this. He proposed that we behave irrationally to confuse the system? Not just irrationally, paradoxically. We do things that contradict each other, that serve no apparent purpose, that follow no pattern the machine can understand or predict. Before Kale-9 could respond, a weak signal crackled through Hyenwoo's simple communication device. The voice was barely audible, distorted by interference from the crystal network. "This is Yang-SIK... Research Team Alpha. Can anyone... hear this?" Hyenwoo activated his transmitter immediately. "Young-Sik, this is Hyenwoo from the research station. We are here to rescue you. What is your situation?" "Trapped... Central processing chamber. System is... analyzing us... learning our behavior patterns. Every time we try to escape, it adapts... The signal faded to static, then returned weakly. "Whatever you do... do not follow logical escape routes. The machine predicts logical behavior, needs something completely unpredictable." "Young-Sik, can you hear me?" Hyenwoo called, but the signal was gone. Kale-9 pulsed with understanding. "The trapped researchers have confirmed your theory. The system cannot process paradoxical behavior patterns. Then that is exactly what we will give it," Hyenwoo said grimly. "Are you ready to act completely crazy?" "Define crazy." Hyenwoo stood up suddenly and walked directly toward the nearest scanning beam, making no attempt to hide. Over him, and immediately every alarm in the system began wailing. Crystal towers flashed with warning lights as the ancient machine detected an intruder. "What are you doing?" Kal-9 demanded in shock. "Something no logical being would ever do," Hyenwoo replied calmly. "I am announcing our presence and then doing the opposite of what any sane person would do about it." Instead of running away from the alarms, Hyenwoo walked toward the central tower at a steady pace. When scanning beams moved to intercept him, he stopped and sat down on the ground. When they moved away, he got up and walked in circles. When defensive barriers began forming to block his path, he climbed over them instead of going around. "The system is confused," Kale-9 reported with amazement. "Its defensive patterns are becoming erratic. It keeps trying to predict your next move, but your actions make no sense." "Good. Now you try something equally crazy." Kale-9's gaseous form suddenly expanded to 3 times its normal size, and contracted to a tiny point, then split into multiple smaller versions of itself that moved in different directions. The crystal network sensors went wild trying to track all the separate energy signatures at once. "Excellent," Hyenwoo laughed. "Keep doing things that contradict themselves." They continued their bizarre approach to the central tower, each action more paradoxical than the last. Hyenwoo would run toward danger, then stop to examine flowers that did not exist. He would dodge scanning beams, then deliberately walk through others. He would climb over obstacles, then crawl under identical barriers just meters away. Kale-9 matched his madness by constantly changing its form and behavior. Sometimes it moved like liquid, sometimes like solid matter. It would race ahead, then lag behind, then appear in 3 places simultaneously. Its energy signatures shifted between frequencies so rapidly that the machine's sensors could not maintain. A lock. The defensive systems are overloading, Kale-9 reported as they approached the base of the central tower. The artificial intelligence is trying to process too many contradictory behavior patterns at once. Perfect. Humans have been confusing more advanced intelligences for thousands of years. It is one of our greatest talents. The entrance to the central tower stood before them, protected by a shimmering energy barrier. Huan-Wu walked directly up to it and knocked on the barrier as if it were a door. When nothing happened, he turned around and walked away. Then he came back and tried to push through the barrier with his shoulder. When that failed, he sat down and began sketching the tower in his notebook. The energy barrier flickered uncertainly, its programming unable to determine whether Huan-Wu was a threat or simply malfunctioning. "I think it is trying to decide if you are actually intelligent," Kale-9 observed. "Let us give it more data to confuse it with," Huan-Wu replied. He stood up and began performing what looked like a ritual dance in front of the barrier, complete with arm waving and hopping on one foot. The barrier suddenly deactivated, apparently. Deciding that no genuine threat would behave so absurdly. "It worked," Kale-9 said in disbelief. "Your paradoxical behavior has convinced the system that we are not a genuine threat." They entered the central tower and found themselves in a vast chamber filled with processing equipment. Suspended in crystalline pods near the center were 3 figures, the missing research team. Tubes and wires connected their bodies to the ancient machinery, which was slowly analyzing their biological structure. Young-Suk, Huan-Wu called out as they approached the pods. The trapped researcher's eyes opened weakly. "You, ... came. How did you ... get past the defenses?" "We acted like humans," Huan-Wu replied, as he examined the pod's locking mechanism. "Completely unpredictable and slightly insane. The system is learning ... from our biology," Young-Suk whispered. "It is trying to ... understand organic life, to convert it more efficiently." Kale-9 flowed around the control systems, its gaseous form interfacing directly with the ancient technology. "I can disrupt the processing sequence, but we must act quickly. The main intelligence is beginning to adapt to our paradoxical behavior patterns." "Then let us give it one final paradox," Huan-Wu said. He pulled out his grandfather's compass and held it against the main control panel. It's a simple magnetic device, so primitive compared to the advanced technology around it, somehow caused the entire system to hesitate. Now he shouted, "Kale-9. Sent electromagnetic pulses through the control systems, while Huan-Wu smashed the crystalline connections with a rock he had picked up outside. Together, they combined ancient human problem-solving with advanced alien abilities to accomplish what neither could have done alone. The processing pods opened with a hiss of escaping gases. The 3 researchers fell to the floor, weak but alive. As alarms wailed throughout the tower, Huan-Wu helped them to their feet while Kale-9 prepared an escape route. "Can you walk?" he asked. Young-Sik. "We'll try ... Good, because now we need to get out of here before this whole system decides to take us seriously." Outside, the ancient terraforming network was beginning to malfunction, its patterns disrupted by their paradoxical attack on its core programming. Crystal towers flickered and sparked as conflicting instructions overloaded the ancient artificial intelligence. The rescue was complete. But Huan-Wu knew their greatest challenge still lay ahead, convincing the galaxy that human unpredictability was not a weakness, but a strength that even the most advanced technology could not replicate. The medical bay of the research station hummed with quiet activity as Huan-Wu slowly opened his eyes. His body ached from head to toe. Bandages covered burns on his arms where crystalline energy had struck him during their escape from the ancient terraforming system. But he was alive, and more importantly, so were the 3 researchers they had rescued. "You are awake," said a familiar voice. Myung sat in a chair beside his bed, her face showing relief mixed with concern. "The doctors said you would recover completely, but you have been unconscious for 2 days." "The research team," Huan-Wu asked weakly, "are they safe?" Ingsug and the others are in the recovery ward. They will need weeks of treatment, but they will survive. The crystalline conversion process was stopped before permanent damage occurred. Haiyan-Wu tried to sit up but found his muscles too weak to support him properly. What about the terraforming system? Is it still active? Miang smiled. That is the best news of all. After you and Kale-9 disrupted its core programming with your paradoxical behavior, the entire network began shutting down. The artificial intelligence could not recover from the logical contradictions you forced it to process. Within hours of your escape, the crystal towers went dark and the ecosystem began returning to normal. In Cal-9, the Nethrum is fine. It has been waiting to speak with you since you were brought back to the station. As if summoned by their conversation, the air in the medical bay began to shimmer. Kale-9's gaseous form flowed through the atmospheric vents and took shape beside Haiyan-Wu's bed. The Nethrum's colors were brighter than usual, pulsing with what looked like satisfaction. Human friend Kalnin said in its wind-like voice. You have accomplished something remarkable. Not only did we save the research team, but we discovered a method for defeating ancient automated systems that has never been tried before. We did it together, Haiyan-Wu replied. Your energy abilities were just as important as my pattern recognition, perhaps. But it was your human concept of paradoxical behavior that made victory possible. No other species in the galaxy thinks in such contradictory ways. Before they could continue their conversation, the medical bay doors opened with a soft hiss. Dr. Sujin entered, her crystalline body reflecting the room's lights and patterns that seemed somehow different than before. Behind her came the three Quillan researchers, moving in their usual perfect synchronization, and two other Nethrim beings that Haiyan-Wu had not met before. Human, Dr. Sujin said, her voice carrying none of its previous dismissive tone. Have come to ... to express our gratitude for your actions. The words seemed difficult for her to speak, as if admitting human value went against everything she had been taught to believe. Your primitive methods succeeded where our advanced technology failed, one of the Quillan collective added. Our quantum probability matrices could not have predicted the solution you discovered. We owe you an apology, Dr. Sujin continued. We dismissed your observations about water patterns and crystal formations as meaningless. We were wrong. Your pattern recognition abilities identified the true nature of the threat when our most sophisticated equipment found nothing. Haiyan-Wu felt overwhelmed by this unexpected recognition. For weeks, these same beings had treated him like a primitive savage whose presence contaminated their advanced scientific work. Now they stood before him with what could only be described as respect. I could not have done it alone, he said honestly. Kale-9's partnership was essential, and Miang helped me access the data that led to our discoveries. Which brings us to our next point, Dr. Sujin said. The Galactic Research Council has reviewed your actions in Kale-9's report. They're prepared to make an unprecedented offer. Kale-9's form brightened with excitement. The Council wishes to establish the first official interspecies tracking partnership in galactic history. You and I would work together as a permanent team, combining human, intuitive reasoning with Nethrim energy sensing abilities. There have been requests from 17 different star systems for our services, one of the other Nethrim added. Apparently, word of your success has spread quickly through the research community. Haiyan-Wu looked at Miang, who nodded encouragingly. This is what you trained for your entire life, she said. The chance to explore unknown worlds and solve mysteries that no one else can handle. But what about Earth? Haiyan-Wu asked. My family, my life there? Earth will be proud to have one of their people represent humanity in such an important role, Dr. Sujin said. And the partnership would be based here at the research station, so you would return regularly for new assignments and equipment. Young Sikh's voice came weakly from the doorway. The rescued researcher was standing with the help of medical equipment, but his eyes were clear and determined. You saved our lives, he said simply. More than that, you saved an entire planet from being consumed by that ancient machine. If anyone deserves this opportunity, it is you. Haiyan-Wu thought about his grandfather's compass still sitting on the table beside his bed. The old man had always said that the best trackers were those who could read signs that others missed, who could see patterns in chaos and find paths where none seemed to exist. What would be our first assignment? He asked Kale-9, the Nethrims. Form swirled with colors that indicated deep satisfaction. There have been mysterious disappearances in the Outer Rim territories. Entire colonies vanishing without a trace, leaving behind only empty settlements and strange energy readings. The local authorities believe another ancient system may have been activated. More terraforming machines? Unknown. But whatever is causing these disappearances has defeated every conventional investigation method attempted so far. They need a team that can think in ways that artificial intelligences cannot predict or counter. Hyan Wu looked around the room at the alien faces, watching him expectantly. Beings who had once considered him a primitive savage now looked to him as their best hope for solving mysteries that their advanced technology could not handle. "I accept," he said firmly. "But I have one condition." "Name it," Dr. Sujin said. "Immediately, Young comes with us as our communications specialist. If we are going to be working in dangerous situations, we will need someone who understands both human and alien psychology to coordinate with different species." Myung's face lit up with excitement. "I would be honored to join your team." "Agreed," Kalnan said without hesitation. A three-being partnership combining human pattern recognition, Nethrim energy sensing, and human-alien communication expertise. "We will be unstoppable." 2 weeks later, Hyan Wu stood in the docking bay of the research station, wearing new equipment designed specifically for tracking operations. His grandfather's compass still hung from his belt, but now it was joined by advanced communication gear and portable analysis tools that would help him document his discoveries. Kale-9 flowed nearby in its gaseous form, while Myung checked their supplies one final time. Their ship, a sleek vessel designed to accommodate both gaseous and solid crew members, waited with engines ready for departure. "Are you ready for this?" Young asked him. Hyun Woo looked back at the research station, where he had once been dismissed as a primitive outsider. Now he was leaving as part of the galaxy's first interspecies tracking team, carrying the hopes of multiple civilizations who had learned that sometimes the most advanced solution was to think like your ancestors. "Yes," he said with confidence. "Let us go find the unfindable." As their ship departed for the Outer Rim and their first official mission, Hyan Wu reflected on the strange journey that had brought him here. He had come to the station as a scorned primitive, but he was leaving as something new, a bridge between human intuition and alien logic, proving that the galaxy's greatest challenges require the combined strengths of all its species, the hunt for answers continued, and Hyan Wu Kim was exactly where he belonged.